Inside the tower, Vikir made a decision that left even his own companions stunned. He had been warned that advancing could lead into a dangerous trap, yet he pressed on fearlessly. Upon reaching the 9th floor, he discovered a place where a terrifying secret lay hidden behind every wall. Then suddenly, the entire floor shook and a revelation confronted him, one that changed everything. What exactly did Vikir find there, and will he manage to escape this perilous floor alive? With a subtle gesture of her fingers, the lady conjured a massive screen in the air before them. Dozens of legendary artifacts shimmered upon it, bizarre weapons, mysterious armor, ancient tomes, and relics imbued with unknown powers. "Forgo the 5th through 8th floors," she said in a soft voice, "and in exchange, claim any one item from this list as your own." "Master, absolutely not!" His companions immediately protested. Making a deal with a monster is a bad idea. But Vikir's gaze remained fixed on the screen. There was something about the offer that had piqued his interest. His 3 companions stared at him in disbelief. Was their master actually considering this deal? The lady breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. "Your good sense is commendable." Yet she harbored a secret delight. She had deliberately concealed the true rank and details of every item. She reckoned Vikir would fall for the lure of some flashy but useless trinket, leaving the real treasure to slip right past him. He'll never be able to recognize it, she thought to herself. Vikir stood silently for a few moments. His eyes swept over each item. Then a confident smile played upon his lips. He raised his hand and pointed toward a simple-looking pair of scales at the very top of the screen. "I'll take that one." The lady's face went pale in an instant. "That one?" Sela's voice trembled. "Do you really want to choose that scale?" Vikir nodded without hesitation. "Yes," he said casually. "It looks the best compared to all the others." Sela's heart sank. It was no ordinary scale. It was the scale of forced equality, an S-rank item that gradually raised all of the user's stats to the level of their highest stat, the most powerful, most dangerous, and most cheat-like item in the entire database. Sela stood there, stunned. How did she, of all the many options, choose precisely this one? Beads of sweat appeared on Sela's forehead. Did he already know the true power of this scale, she wondered nervously? Vikir simply shrugged. "If you can't give it up," he said calmly, "then consider the deal off." Sela's face tightened. She couldn't let this opportunity slip away. After all, she was finally finding a way to get rid of Vikir. No, she said quickly. "The deal is accepted. The scale is yours." She reasoned with herself that Vikir likely wouldn't even know how to use such a complex S-rank artifact. Awakening its power was no easy feat. The fight has been averted. That's what matters, she thought. A sinister smile slowly spread across her face. Mere strength wouldn't be enough to survive on the floor Vikir was being sent to. Whether he possessed the S-rank artifact or not, his survival ahead was all but impossible. A glowing teleportation portal opened. Vikir stepped into it without looking back. The very next moment, system messages began flashing before his eyes. Challenge of the lower floors completed. New title acquired. New title acquired. Achievement recorded. Vikir opened his updated status screen. New titles had been added to his list, but his gaze fixed on another notification. Hidden ability unlocked. Mana Resistance Rank Rare. A faint gleam appeared in his eyes. The 10 gold candies received from Lady Sela, the S-rank conversion bug, and the precise preparations made at the last moment. Everything had come together perfectly. Vikir had finally unlocked his rare hidden stat. The gamble had paid off, yet Vikir's companions were astonished. The old demon stared at that ordinary, worn-out scale. How did you recognize it among thousands of items? It's no common object. It's a renowned S-rank artifact. Vikir picked up the scale and said casually, "I suppose luck was on my side." But the truth was different. In his past life, he had heard of a weak student who, during the early days of the tower, had inadvertently met the conditions to unlock this very artifact. That student, once unnoticed by anyone, had soon risen to become one of the most dangerous contenders, all thanks to this scale. Vikir remembered the object's unique shape. That was why he had recognized it at a glance. Skipping a few floors wasn't a bad deal, he thought. If this was the reward, the trade was in his favor. Even though he had parted ways with his brothers, he had already provided them with enough advice and strategies to survive on their own. For now, he had to focus on his next move. The old demon spoke in a grave tone. "Skipping floors could be a trap set by the tower's administrators. A danger might be waiting for you on the next floor, one against which even raw power is useless." "I know," Vikir replied calmly. The demon warned him again. "Sudden, unforeseen events can ruin even the most precise plans. Be careful." Vikir smiled faintly. "I would certainly heed your advice," he said, "but it's coming from someone who failed in his own schemes." The demon's face flushed with anger. Vikir walked on, seemingly unconcerned. Yet every sense within him was on high alert, for he knew the most dangerous things in the tower were not powerful enemies. The most dangerous traps are the ones you aren't even aware of. Vikir knew this chasm was no ordinary one. The tower's floors connected differently each time. Consequently, one could not rely entirely on another person's experience. His next stage could be vastly different from theirs. Preparation would have been easier had he known the correct layout beforehand. But for now, he held only hazy memories from his past life. Just then, system messages began to flash. 4th floor cleared. 5th floor, scorching desert, exited. Transfer to the next floor initiated. The countdown raced forward. 6th floor, 7th floor, 8th floor, and then the final chime rang out. 9th floor selected. Destination, Dragon Man's underground laboratory. Vikir opened his eyes as the portal's light faded. He stood in an unnaturally clean, quiet room lined with white tiles. Silence hung heavy in the air, so profound that the sound of his own breathing was clearly audible. He was about to move forward when Dekarabia's panicked voice rang out. "Wait, Master!" Vikir froze. Several dark silhouettes were moving behind a thick glass wall. The very next moment, grotesque figures slammed against the glass. Thud! Dekarabia's gaze fell upon their attire. They're wearing academy uniforms. Vikir's eyes turned cold. It didn't take long for him to understand. These monsters hadn't been born that way. They were students, victims of a horrific experiment. Suddenly, the entire floor shuddered violently. The wall tiles rattled. Cracks began to spiderweb across the glass. And for the first time, Vikir was truly startled. For this stirring did not come from any machine. It seemed as though something colossal inside the laboratory had awakened. Dekarabia's panicked voice rang out. "Master, the room is moving upwards." Indeed, the entire room began to rise like a high-speed elevator. A sharp hiss of steam echoed from behind the walls as they ascended through a vast dark shaft. Moments later, the room came to a sudden halt with a jolt. Click! It had locked into place. Dekarabia glanced around in fear, but Vikir remained completely calm. He braced himself, ready for whatever lay ahead. Slowly, the wall in front of them slid open. Beyond it lay the true core of the laboratory. It was a vast, glowing chamber where massive mechanical cubes floated in mid-air. Streams of energy pulsed between the cubes, making the entire room feel like part of a living machine. Dekarabia's gaze drifted upward. A glowing sphere filled with violet energy was hovering in the air. "What is that?" he whispered. Just then, a piercing scream rang out from above. "Ah!" Vikir and Dekarabia looked up simultaneously. Someone was plummeting rapidly toward them. Thud! A female student with white hair crashed right onto Vikir. Vikir fell flat on his back while the girl, groaning in pain, found herself sitting on top of him. Ugh, that was a terrible landing. A moment later, she opened her eyes and looked down. Her gaze met Vikir's. She froze. I'm sitting on top of you?" Sinclair's face turned bright red instantly. Vikir said, his expression unchanged. "Yes, and if the introduction is over, perhaps you could get up now." Flustered, Sinclair immediately scrambled backward. But even amidst that strange encounter, the purple sphere floating above had begun to glow brighter and brighter.